Hello, everyone. Great to be with you. So, student retention is a topic that I'm sure is front of mind for most educators, but retention is not equal. You're probably familiar with the statistics. The average retention rate in higher education in the US is 69% nationally. But for full-time first-year students, nearly one quarter will drop out within 12 months. But for part-time students in their first year, it's more than half, 54.9%, that fail to complete their first year. This matters because higher education is currently going a dramatic transformation. The traditional college or university student, which maybe historically was an affluent recent high school graduate attending full time, is no longer the average. What used to be non-traditional learners have now become the new majority today. And this means that the shape of student support needs to change. So if traditional learners are no longer the majority, who is? Well, more than 40% are older than 22. They're not arriving straight from high school. They're working while studying, sometimes parents, sometimes veterans. They have a higher awareness of their neurodiversity, and they're potentially the first in their families to attend higher education. This shift has profound implications for how we approach teaching, learning, and student support, because these individuals face increased challenges that do affect their learning. At Genio, we analyze data on US higher education enrollment from the National Center for Education Statistics, IPEDS, and the National Post-Secondary Student Aid Study. And we identified similarities in the common learning challenges faced by the new majority. We believe there are three main challenges that the new majority are more likely to face. So firstly, they are time and attention poor. For example, they could be working, or they're part-time students, or they may have children that they're caring for. Secondly, they are underprepared for independent learning. For example, this could be because they're mature students returning to study after a long time away from formal education, or perhaps they're first generation students and just didn't have that environment when they were younger. Thirdly, they are facing individual barriers to effective learning. For example, because they have English as a second language, perhaps they're neurodivergent, or they have a disability. In fact, using this data, we've done a deep dive into this on an institutional level. We've created personalized data sheets for institutions across the USA that show the size of cohorts of the new majority in your institution. So this data sheet also enables you to compare your institution's numbers to the average for your state and the average across the US. So if you would like access to the data sheet for your institution, please do drop your email in the chat or send us an email at the address that's here on screen. So by identifying the core challenges facing new majority students, we can identify what supports will help them. So for the time and attention poor, they need to be more efficient to be able to succeed. For the underprepared learner, they need better understanding of the study habits and techniques that will lead to success. And for those with individual barriers to learning, they're going to be served by improved accessibility and access to the learning experience. But universally, they are facing higher levels of cognitive load. And this is a summary of studies from the Nuffield Foundation, which researches student profiles within the new majority learner groups. It indicates that being time poor, underprepared, and facing learning barriers often leads to shallow learning as a result of cognitive overload. And this is crucial when we're considering retention, because new majority learners are more likely to go for a spin on the disengagement cycle. Poor learning experiences and low grades affect a learner's self-confidence and mental health. This heightens frustrations, which in turn lowers their motivation and often leads to reduced effort. After a few spins on the cycle, the learner can find themselves considering dropping out. And if you're facing higher levels of cognitive overload, your learning experience is going to be poorer. So, how can we support new majority learners within a system geared towards traditional learners? And this is what we're going to dive into as a panel shortly. But before that, I'm going to share a few ideas of what a proactive approach could look like, focusing on a model of prevention over cure when it comes to learning support. This in no way replaces the need to be reactive and provide a more complex support for students with needs, but instead I'm wondering how we can support the new majority learners from the get-go on their learning journey. Our approach at Genio in designing EdTech is focused on how we can support independent learning through careful product design. We believe that proactive support for better learning is more effective and efficient than reactive support. So this includes teaching students the skills and habits they need to be successful as part of a core curriculum, equipping learners with tools to support common learning challenges so learning is independent and doesn't need additional support, and also identifying what tools to use at the right time in the learning process and ensure that learners understand how best to use them to aid their learning. The question of how best to set students up for success is definitely not an easy one to answer. It's a very complex problem. Although study skills training may be included in orientation, that doesn't necessarily mean that students then have those skills. Study skills are rooted in habits, behaviors, and techniques that are built over time. We already know that many students are not sufficiently prepared for college. Not being able to effectively organize your time, stay on top of classes, or understand what is required for success is going to create stress. And in addition, challenges such as attention and concentration, executive functioning, and information processing are going to make the learning process far more difficult. Moreover, every student today has an LLM, an AI in their pocket. It's a learning tool of sorts, but it can be used to bypass the learning process. This is the reality of the context in which students today are studying. We of course should offer guidance on how AI should be used, but I think it's also important to be opinionated on what learning tools support effective learning and which ones may shortcut or bypass it. And this is what Genio is helping institutions to do across the US and across the world. We're working with over 1,000 institutions, sometimes with departments supporting individual cohorts of the new majority, and sometimes across the whole institution to support all students. There's a good chance that our study tools are already driving student outcomes at your institution, and you may not even know it. Hundreds of thousands of students use our flagship note-taking and lecture study tool, Genio Notes, worldwide, receiving proactive student support that is independently proven to help them persist in education, achieve better grades, and improve their study skills. Our partner institutions see increased persistence and outcomes, and especially in cohorts of the new majority. It's what we're really passionate about. Our mission is to unlock better learning for everyone. And we've always built our products on learning science principles to support the learning process. We've received the badges on screen because we approach building learning technology with integrity. We see AI as a great technology to support better learning, but we want to consciously integrate it to ensure it leads to better outcomes. Our approach helps students to get real results, as proven by our ESSA Level 3 badge, received when independent research proved that Genio Notes improves learning outcomes across several metrics, and that includes engagement, GPA, and retention. Ultimately, our belief is that the future of education is going to become increasingly learner-centered. This is why focusing on the challenges of the learner and using technology to address those challenges is going to be a part of how we create more independence and more agency for learners. After all, the only one who can do the learning is the learner themselves.